Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry. With me is always...
There are no memorable quotes from this movie, so I'm just Eddie from Edward is Truth.
Thanks for that.
No.
And also, joining us is a special guest star, Eric Champney. How's it going, Eric?
Hello. It's fantastic, Zach. How are you doing over there in the other room?
Oh, just wonderful. Yes, Eric is actually visiting me right now. We're working on a project, so I figured why not have him join? But since my setup is just kind of not professional, it's kind of hard to have both of us in the one thing. So Eric's just in my living room, just over yonder. So you're getting three of us to talk about the movie today, which is House of Wax, released May 6, 2005. This is obviously the remake of the remake. And this is another...
It's not even...
It's
It's
well,
not
yeah,
even a
we'll, and
remake,
we'll get
it's-
we'll get into that. We'll get into that. But yeah, this is another Dark Castle movie. We already covered House on Haunted Hill and 13 Ghosts, which were both remakes and more faithful to the source material. This is kind of its own thing. This is more of like a Texas Chainsaw type movie, if you will. I know that we've talked about the last two before, and I'm curious, Edward, especially to hear your take on this, because it's been a while since we talked about this, and I remember last time you spoke favorably of it, but you're always you change your mind a lot, so I want to know what are your first impressions here?
First impression of this particular screening, I went in with a big smile on my face, just kind of like, go on, the House of Wax, make me laugh. And dear God, did it. I don't go in expecting groundbreaking cinema or anything like that. I think I just go in to have fun, and I did. So if that answers your question thus far.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think that's kind of my takeaway for this, especially, is that it's a lot of fun. And with the Dark Castle movies, especially, even the ones that aren't great, which I don't think we've talked about the ones that are not great. I think that all of the remake Dark Castle movies, especially, are very serviceable. I mean, at its worst, very serviceable. But I had a lot of fun with this one. But having said that, there's a lot of flaws for sure. Eric, you and I watched this last night. And you hadn't seen it since probably
2005.
yeah, when it came out. So what were your thoughts on it?
Well, I had to put on my Mr. Rogers sweater for this. It was an absolute hootenanny good time to watch it. It's a terrible fucking movie, but it's one of those things though where it's like you just kind of enjoy the badness because it keeps leaning deeper and like harder and harder into it. It's like it wants to be wretched.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that we talked about with the 13 Ghosts and House on Haunted Hill is that Dark Castle kind of has this carnival quality to it. Like you are going to the carnival or like a roller coaster ride, which is like especially apt for House on Haunted Hill when we start off with Jeffrey Rush and Lisa Loeb and Spike from Buffy and all that. So I feel that that is especially here, and I feel it the most when they're in the town. And it's like she's just like run out there alone. I can't remember if she's with her brother at that point, but they've got like the power to the entire town in their house, and they're just like turning everything on. Everything's being lit up around her. It's just like this. She even calls it a freak show. She's like, this whole place is a freak show at one point. So it's really like all of that is really fun. I just like my problems are primarily with the script.
Well, as they should be.
Well, this movie is. I should have checked to see how long the last two remakes were, but this one is like about an hour and 55 minutes, if I'm not mistaken.
So, yeah.
Which
Something like that.
it felt like they could have, like this could have been a 90-minute movie, 100 at the most.
What would you have
I,
trimmed?
everything. No.
Well, I think that okay. Well, first of all, the first act, like this setup. How did you describe it, Eric? You said it was a very top heavy movie.
It was a really top-heavy movie because when did we clock the first kill when Jared Padalecki died? It was like 50 minutes into the movie.
Well, no,
No, he wasn't even dead yet.
Yeah, it was about like 55 minutes when he was getting like sprayed down. And we were like, nobody's died at this point yet, have they? Which is fine. Like, I don't need people to be like dying left, right, and center. But then it wasn't until after when Dalton came and found him that I guess Jared like finally did succumb to his situation. And at that point, it was like an hour and 5 minutes into the movie. So there's like, it's a really long setup to get to the town. And it felt like some of this could have been trimmed. And then I think that the other thing that I would have said could have gone, and this is something I noticed the last time I watched this, because I did watch this very recently. It was requested for my Patreon review a couple of months ago, and one of the things I noticed was that the like towards the end, it just kind of meanders a bit. Like once it's just them, once it's just the siblings. I don't even remember their last names, but we'll just say the Chad Michael Murray and Alicia Cuthbert, and they're like, what do we do? What's going to happen now? And they're like, we have to go find the rest of our friends. And the reason why this doesn't work is because we as an audience know that their friends are already dead. So it's like right off the bat, there's all the tension of just them kind of going back into this house and looking for them is gone. But they also know what the danger is. So them going in there is just like this risky situation. It's not like the Hitchcock bomb under the table thing where we're going into the house. They don't know what the horrors are. They've already experienced it. They're just being stupid at this point. And no, like that's different from like something like Halloween.
The bomb has
Well, like here's an example, like Halloween 1978, Laurie Strode. We already know all her friends are dead. She doesn't know that they're dead, so it's a similar situation here. But she also doesn't know that Michael Myers is in the house across the street. So that's like an example of like the bomb under the table. That's what makes it so suspenseful when she crosses that street and goes into the house. Whereas here, we're just watching Nick and Carly go into this house. Well, we know that their friends are dead. They don't know, but they know that like this is a bad situation. And they get into that house and they're just sort of like poking around, looking for whatever, I don't know. And that's where she finds the drawer of the information about the shit, like the siblings, and it leads to this like kind of convoluted twist, because Dark Castle likes to put these twists in these movies that don't really need to be there, but they're just
anything.
Yeah, and that all of that stuff could have been scrapped, especially since when the guy comes in, he's like already in a weakened situation, Bo. Where they could have easily taken him out while he was trying to get those arrows out of him. So it just, a lot of that just felt like it was very contrived. It didn't need to be there, and it slowed the ending down. That's all I'll say about that.
I mean, they had so many opportunities to kill that man, and they kept not killing that man, and it was really wild, because seriously, the circumstances are a little bit dire at that point, aren't they? And you know that he's going to kill you if you don't kill him, so maybe you ought to kill him. Maybe you ought to kill him.
He had survived quite a few flesh wounds. Like, nobody bleeds out in this movie, including the victims. Like, everybody gets something, like, you know, impaled or clipped off or sliced or whatnot. And the only person that really kind of gets addressed with is Carly, and she just kind of like tears off, what is it, like the bottom of her tank, and just kind of wrap it around the tip of her finger, and okay, problem solved. And but I mean, like, Jared Padalecki, I mean, I guess they address the Achilles tendon when he gets that sliced in the dark and everything like that. Like, it is like actually treated, like later when he's getting, you know, prepped by fucking Vincent. But
good old Vincent.
But I'm always looking for the blood. That's one complaint I have, like, for this movie. It's a very small detail, but every now and then I'm just kind of like, well, why aren't they bleeding? Why aren't they applying pressure? Like, that would only kind of intensify the stakes of what's going on. Just like, I better, get somewhere or get like to a hospital soon, or I'm gonna bleed out. Like, just put it in. It's not going to curb the tension at all. It's only going to keep that roller coaster going. So, but that said, I am fond of the violence that we do get to experience. Like I kind of feel it because you know me with like I mean I mentioned Achilles tendon and I'm surprised I didn't even have like a visceral reaction as I said it because now I just want to grab the back of my ankle.
Oh,
it
I
hurts.
get it. I get it. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's not good. And everything, even the wax shower that they put Wade through, and what are the other? I mean, all of the violence that happens. Ironically, Paris Hilton's demise was kind of like the incentive for a lot of people at the time while this was in theaters to go see it because the people who hate Paris Hilton can go watch her die.
Well, wasn't that part of the publicity? Is
I
go,
think
you
so.
go watch Paris Hilton die? Like they really pushed that,
And
which
she
I thought was really smart.
Yeah, and she was like the number one cheerleader for that too. Like she had the t-shirts and all that. So yeah, it was a huge thing because I mean like that was like the peak of Simple Life. Popularity.
Well, we watched some of the special features last night, and one of them was an interview with Paris, and she to this day, and it's the Scream Factory release, and she to this day it seems really proud and happy that she did the film, and it was really great. She does say that people tell her that her death scene is one of the most iconic in horror movie history, and I think that's sweet.
Yeah, that's sweet. Maybe not true, but that's very kind for the people to say that.
Yeah.
I think, and you know what? Just on the heels of like Paris Hilton, I think that she's definitely not the worst part of this movie. I think she does a great job with what little she has to do here. Like she really is like hardly in the movie. Like we'll have to get Ryan Showers to come in with the House of Wax screen times, but it's she I could have used more of her, honestly. I don't know how.
Well, she's there. If she's there, use her. If she's there, use her.
Yeah. You're right. Paige and Blake, though, the way that they are used, like I feel like kind of like intimates that they are the worst friends imaginable. Because imagine that you're separated from a group. You know, you're with a group of friends, and you've got like your ride or die with you, and then they go off with their significant other, and you're here with your significant other. You haven't heard from them in hours. You have no means of communicating with them, and all you're concentrating on is being in the tent and doing a little striptease for your man. Like after a certain point, like I understand, and see that's the other thing is like there's no, I think it's done in the most enjoyable kind of like dumb filmic way, but there's no real kind of like continuity as far as like where these characters' minds may be, because one second she's like in her cute little kind of like fleecy, sweat outfit, and stripping into her cute little cherry red underwear for Blake, and then the next minute she wants to talk to him really seriously about something and tell him that she might be pregnant, and I'm just like, and then when he needs to go off and check the music.
Eric, can you say what you were going to say?
I have something to say about all of that. Well, okay, so we go away from those two characters for a very long time.
Yes, we do.
And I mean, to the point where I kind of forgot about them. Mm-hmm. And then we, jump back to them, and they're in the tent. And, Zach was saying, well, they're off fucking. They're busy fucking. They left them alone to do that. And we jump back to the tent, and they're dressed, and they're doing all this stuff. And I'm like, why are they still dressed? Why aren't they fucking yet? It's not like these people have conversations.
100%. I agree. I had the same thought scroll across my head while I was watching them. I was just like, wow, it's been like hours. It's not daylight anymore.
Well, she had like a lot of time to tell her that she, they had time to like do the nasty and then talk about the pregnancy and then abort the baby. Like they had all this time.
To be fair, to the movie's credit, there is a line. It's when Carly is still with Wade, and they're waiting for what's-his-face to come back to the shop, and she just kind of like looks out. She's like, "Oh, I hate the winter. It gets dark so early." Oh, so that was like I guess how they made that work. But it did feel like we were gone from them for so long, And when we do, like, literally the last thing that he says to them before they leave to Nick and Dalton is just like, are you guys going to fuck? Because me and Paige are.
Yeah.
Like, there was urgency to that. He was ready to fuck. And they were, like, just peeing and doing their gay shit. Before we get ahead of ourselves, though, because we need a premise, but I also just want to...
It's this movie is pretty gay.
Yes. Well, okay.
In ways that
the
I
gayness
deeply
of all of that, I
appreciate.
want to do the regular housekeeping here. So, Patreon supporters, I want to thank a slew of new ones. So we've got Joseph Douglas Watson, Elliot from Orlando, Evie's Moving Castle, Trang Tran, Chris Bain, and Jonathan Mullins. So thank you very much to all of those lovely people for coming aboard and supporting not just my regular YouTube channel, Zach Cherry, but also the Cherry Picker podcast here that you are listening to and or watching. And if you as well would like to become a Patreon member and support, you will get early access to all of these episodes. You will also get access, depending on what tier, if you are Freddy Krueger tier, to our Cherry Picker After Dark, which we do every month. This month we are finishing our run of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, so we're finally doing season 7. Last month we did the slasher rankings, and there's a whole back catalog of bonus episodes for you to enjoy if you come aboard right now. But all of that is very much appreciated.
It's a good time.
It is.
It's a good time.
There's hours of content because we go on. So it's well worth the value. Even though I'm speaking
verbose
biasly
around here.
There's a lot of verbosity. I also want to thank our editor, Boy Cried Wolf. So thank you very much for putting up with those hours of verboseness.
Oh God.
Boy Who Cried Wolf is a wonderful musician and songwriter, by the way.
He is, yeah.
Check him out. Check him out on Instagram. Boy Who Cried Wolf, all one word.
Boy Cried Wolf. Thank you, Eric.
Boy Cried Wolf.
Okay, fine. I forgot. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, Edward, do you have a premise for us? 18 minutes into the episode here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting later and later. Like we're going to be like an hour in and be like, "So, do you have a premise for us?"
One of these days.
This was modified. This was modified from Austin 4577 on IMDb. Oh, and I the premise in and of itself is going to be kind of like a comment also, because one thing I noticed, Paris Hilton performance's page in this movie has the most distinct monotone I think I've ever heard. Because you think monotone, you tend to think like dropped level, staying at one. Hers is higher, and I always associate her with a vocal fry, but she doesn't really have one in this movie. It's just like kind of a soft, so I'm going to do this. While on their way to a college football game, a group of friends discover a small town inhabited by wax figures, with its main attraction a curious structure occupied also by a pair of murderous brothers. Now, one by one, the friends risk becoming permanent exhibits in the House of Wax.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Some of my favorite lines in the movie are hers. I mean, there's two that
Like
that jump out to me. It's when Carly is peeing or pooping or whatever she's doing in the bush, and she gets up and the smell wafts over again from like the roadkill, and she's like, I want to go follow this and just like see what it is, and then you just have Paris and she says, why? Or something to that effect.
It's wonderful. It's just like, why?
Yeah. And
it's very simple life.
Yeah, and then there's another one. It's when she calls them and they're on the phone and she's just like, "Did you get that fan belt thing or whatever?" Because that's basically how I would feel about that whole side story of them like having to go into the town and look for the fan belt. It's just like, what was that thing you needed? That fan belt thingy. So I thought it was. I thought that was all great.
I think it's important to recognize. I think when they were making this movie, everyone was having a damn good time, and I think that I think it really comes across in the final product, regardless of the ultimate quality of the film and all of that. I mean, the energy of that really comes through, and it's about 20 years later, and it's you can still feel the vibe of the fun that they were having, and that's great.
Absolutely, and there's an energy to it. Like I feel like while I criticize the characters for not really having consistent motives or even I don't know characteristics, I do find it does always feel like I'm watching the same movie in an odd way. it's and all the turns that it takes. Like I mean, even if I have forgotten about a particular plot line, it's just kind of like, oh yeah, you're in this movie. You just have to kind of shrug and let it wash over you, I think. That's what I would advise people who are marching into this film for the first time.
Something to
just let it run over you.
Something to the benefit of the characters in this is like I know each and every one of them, like, and I remember their names. Because we were having this conversation because Eric's like, how am I going to remember their names? I need to have the IMDb open, and I'm just like, simple. Right. Like you have, I might have messed them up. I confused Wade and Dalton's names, but no, like you know who everyone is. They might not necessarily be likable, but I'm enjoying seeing them on the screen for the most part. The killers, like this is not a big cast either. It's pretty much just like isolated to what we see, like this group, and then the killers, and you have the hitchhiker, and then all that nonsense at the end. And there was actually an alternate opening, which is on the special features. It was like a scene of just like some girl whose car breaks down, and it's the similar shot of like the side of the truck where he like pulls up and you think he's coming to tow the car, but then he just drives by her and like grabs her neck as he goes by and like throws her into her windshield.
Insane. Yeah.
And she turns out she's the I guess the one that Vincent is working on when they first go in there, and then she ends up being the Miss Ambrose that's standing there later on. So I'm glad that they cut all that. We didn't need it. It was just extra that didn't really serve anything.
No, the only thing that deleted scene did kind of like, or that alternate opening is what I think it's called on YouTube, because that's where I found it. So if anybody doesn't have the disc and doesn't feel like investing, you can stream it off YouTube. But the only thing it did kind of answer is why they lingered on her after, because she's the last thing you look at, I think, after Nick and Carly, excuse me, exit the movie theater. And you just kind of linger on this beauty queen standing there for a while, and she's got a very distinctive look. And I always just thought like, oh, because of the illusion that he made earlier in the movie to like, you know, you could be a Miss Ambrose if you're pretty enough, or I don't remember what the line is. But
he says, how many teeth do you need to win that?
Right, but then also later, like, Bo says something about it too. He makes some kind of comment about how she'd be pretty enough to be like the next Miss Ambrose or something. So I'm just kind of like, oh, because she's prettier than that girl? I don't know. So at least now I know, oh, she's, you know, just another victim. I mean, I assumed that about all of the people in the town.
Here's a question, because I posed this as we were watching it. Yeah. Do you think that, so it's kind of suggested that this was a town that was on the map 10 years previous. It had been inhabited. So do you think that like people, when the sugar mill closed down, as they say, do you think people just left, or do you think that the brothers slowly and methodically killed everyone in that town, and also just more people who came into the town?
Well, it's such a small town, and I think that if that was happening, they would, unless they were just so stupid, which, you know, it kind of goes without saying, but like you notice that, Jethro and Carla and whatnot were just not coming home, and there's 17 people who seem to live in that town. I mean, it's and how many people are people who are left over from the town, and how many people are people who discovered the town, because it's kind of hard to find. Like it's because it's kind of convenient that they were camping in that area. That's a total coincidence. So, I mean, how many people accidentally end up camping in that area?
That's the haunting question of the film, Eric.
Well, it
could be you.
There's also the suggestion that they were lured there because Blake found the thing on the GPS, the road, but when they got there, there was the stuff like the signs with the lights put up, and they had to make the detour. Do you remember that?
Right.
So it's kind of what I got out of that, and that's why the ending of like the roadkill guy is that was like he was in on it. He was one of the brothers, so he would just make sure to close down roads to purposefully direct people into the town.
Okay,
that the GPS doesn't even like register a path, an actual path. It seems like it could be a road that was either long since forgotten, or that a road that maybe they have several roads leading to the town that they've created clearings for that they can block off whenever they need to strategically. Yeah. I think, and also I do like the idea. I didn't invest that much thought into the history of the town other than what I was given, so I didn't scratch very deeply.
There's not much.
I
You don't have to go
greatly
too deep with
appreciate.
this one.
No,
I mean,
no.
I greatly appreciate that you guys have done this math, because it's sure, why not?
But I actually really like the idea. It's one that I'll return to with my headcanon the next time I see this movie, and there will be a next time. But,
sure, yeah.
Yeah, of course. But I like the idea of thinking that like maybe they just slowly started killing off the people, or even the people who died. They just kind of like said, oh, we'll take care of it. And if there were any remaining family members who got too nosy or got too close, maybe they did pick them off. And then eventually, because it was such a small town, everybody was just kind of like taken out. And then you start getting campers, visitors, travelers, nomads, what have you. And after a while, you just kind of like end up building this alternate world for yourself. That's the thing that I really like about the movie, is that I'm not afraid to go to bed or turn the lights out or anything like that. I'm not looking over my shoulder or going, what's that, after I turn it off. But while I'm watching it, the vibe of the wax figures and everything like that, oh no, thank you. I have a number of times in this movie where I'm watching characters make decisions to go into any number of the different regions of the town, and I'm like, no, not at all. No, thank you. I would not be there. I'd be long gone. I would have seen the town, walked through it, and I'd be gone.
Well, what the hell is going on with Wade? What's going on with Wade?
Oh, God.
Because he's got 17 different personalities.
Yes, he does. He totally does.
It's like his he's just constantly deciding he's going to be this person and this person, and he gets dumber and dumber and dumber the more he discovers what a horrific place and probably like treacherous situation he's in. He's like, oh, I'll just go deeper, and he's smiling and he's excited about it, and it's just, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, and that particular personality trait, I think, kicks off when he's in the House of Wax. He's just kind of dazzled by it all of a sudden, and she's like, you're not going in there, are you? Or whatever she asks. And he's like, oh, yeah.
The thing with him that's just really annoying, though, is that he kind of starts off like he's sort of this level-headed person. Like, he's the voice of reason. He's the one who's the moral compass of this group. Or he's just like the, like the brother comes out and he kicks the guy's change cup who's begging for cash. And he's just like, wow, that's great. So he's right. Already presented as being the nice guy. And then as the movie goes on, he just becomes like obnoxious, and he's like
and so entitled.
Well, very entitled. Of like, you're walking into a place that says closed, whatever, going into the shop, all these things. But the thing that pisses me off the most is like when he goes up to the house and he just takes out his keys and starts like scraping away. It is wax, like literally. But then they go inside and he's like trying to show off.
Desecrating
no. He's trying to show off, and he like takes out his lighter. And he's like, hey, Carly, look. And I'm like, this is someone's artwork. Like, first of all, you're not allowed to go in here. And you're just being a fucking bitch. And that's why I was like
walking up to a painting and chipping at the paint on the painting. It's like, who the hell are you?
Absolutely.
Mr. Jared?
So there's this kind of like awestruck wonder that he enters in that is also kind of chased with that like complete lack of regard for the people who erected the thing you're so excited to go into, and then once inside you want to start destroying it. And that's not at all the person who we were introduced to. No. That felt more like a Nick quality. So yeah, it's kind of all over the place.
And do you think that
then
maybe
we have the thing where he, like when he goes to the bathroom of like their residence, and he already knows that he's been annoying Carly. Like he's on thin ice with her already, and he goes in there. It takes him forever to even like take a piss. Like he's just looking around at everything with wonderment. Then he comes out, and then he goes into the little surgery room. And it's like your girlfriend, like it's dark out, it's getting dark out. Your girlfriend's already pissed off at
like,
you. You
now
want to
it's
get
dark,
back.
you've been in
Why
there
are you
the whole
wasting
sunset.
time just looking at like a horse fetus or whatever the fuck it is, and just and all that shit? Like just get the fuck
You know
out of
how
there.
it feels? It feels like that character might be a combination of two characters, and they
Right.
decided that they didn't want to cast it, or they wanted to just let's combine these two characters because the personality traits that are exhibited between like pre-town and post-town or during the town are so monumentally different that it really feels like we're dealing with two different characters here that have been combined together. And I would be curious to know if that's what happened, because it is none of the other characters are like that. They're pretty consistent otherwise.
I mean, I have a theory that maybe at one point one of those two personalities belonged to Carly, and they thought, well, she's a girl, she can't be, she can't be strong in one direction or the other. She has to just kind of be the one going no and screaming, because that's all she does. She basically is a non-character. He's picking up the slack and playing the two characters, one of which she should be allowed access to, but she's just supposed to be wandering around and be very passive, and just kind of the house is having an effect on her, but she doesn't really do anything about it until she gets to kind of assume the moniker of final girl at the end of the movie. So
Well, I think that it might have been a lot more fun, and I might have bought the entitlement had they both sort of just kind of become like entranced in wonder and been like, oh, look at this, look at this, look at this, and everyone, and not everyone, but the two of them had kind of decided together that this is an exciting place that we're gonna fuck up and enjoy together, and then maybe one of them goes too far and the other one could have backed off and be like, okay, we're going too far and we're not here for this. We need to go and find our fan belt or whatever, whatever it is, and perhaps that would have sold me on the behavior a lot more, because it's just so weird.
yeah. Also, okay, this is a good transition to this thought. If they could have somehow administered those two personalities bestowed upon Wade and given one of them to Carly, just in that particular kind of like sequence, like while they're first like moving around the house and whatnot. I'm of two minds about the course this movie takes, because on one hand I see where they were going, what they were going for with twinship against twinship against twinship. You've got, in one corner you've got Bo and Vincent, and in the other corner you've got Carly and Nick. And I actually do feel it, like in the third act of the movie when they're fighting together and everything like that. I'm like, oh, okay,
Really?
this is working. I did, but this is the thing. It didn't work up until now because everything, and I don't know if this is the way they were written or the way they were directed or even just the way they were cast. Chad Michael Murray and what's her name?
His body.
Alicia, yeah, and his body. No, Alicia Cuthbert or Cuthbert. How do you say her name?
Alicia Cuthbert.
Alicia.
Yeah, she's
Alicia
from Calgary.
Cuthbert. Yes. Oh, cool. Nice.
Well,
So there is arguably no romantic or sexual chemistry for me between Jared Padalecki and Alicia as actors. They're fine. They seem like a safe little kind of like, oh, no, we have very vanilla sex kind of, like couple. But oh my God, does the chemistry go off the charts whenever Chad Michael Murray seems to kind of like get in her face and challenge her. And I'm going like, are they going to kiss?
I know there's a little bit of that going on, isn't
Well,
there? There's a little bit of happening.
There's some weird incest vibes, but even at the beginning, I think the first part where I kind of like was really like, oh wow, this is interesting, because I feel like at the beginning most of that shit is just like blah 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 blah. Want to go to New York, fashion. I'm pregnant. What do I do? There's just all these like boring conversations, and then finally, Nick and Carly have their conversation, and she's sort of like, okay, why are you being an asshole to me? Like what's all this? It's just like you blame everything on everyone in your life. Like it's the parents' fault, it's the manager's fault, it's the football coaches, and he's just like. making fun of her. It's just like, oh, we're going to go to New York City. I hear they got buildings as high as the sky, and I'm like, this is great. I love this little like banter between them. Like it's fun, and I feel like that's why I think that the movie gets better progressively as it goes through, because once we get to the town and once Chad Michael Murray gets to the town with Dalton, that's when like the movie's just like, okay, this now we're on, because they get back together when he finds her in that weird basement operating chair, whatever, like, and then it's just like, okay, we're doing it. You know, we're going against these well, it's just like the twins versus twins idea, that's why I don't think that it necessarily works, because it's more so just, well, we're saying like, I'm the good twin, you're the bad twin, and it was like the same idea with Bo and Vincent, and kind of like that whole like conceit of like and plot twist of well, it was actually this, like, none of that mattered. I liked it in the opening scene because that was just a fun little like retro moment, but to come back and then have like the Michael Myers chair, like the Halloween Resurrection Michael Myers high chair, and I was like, who cares? What does this matter? Because it didn't amount to anything when she was up in the room and she's telling him just like, I know that you're good. Your brother did this to you, yada yada yada, and none of this is even registering with Vincent. She's just like throwing whatever she can at him, and then she says, please don't kill me. It didn't, none of it mattered. Like, you know, you compare that to like an Amy
like,
Seal.
I saw the chairs, you're not a freak. She called it a freak show earlier, but she's like, you're not a freak, everything's okay.
I've seen the light.
Please don't kill me.
But you compare that to like something like Friday the 13th Part 2, like Amy Seal, where she's actually doing something and it's making a difference. Like, it's just like, these were just a lot of ideas that were thrown together that they didn't have an idea of how they were going to pay off, so they're just there. They just had to exist to be there, and it's ridiculous, and I love all of it being there, but like, this is where like the movie could have been trimmed down. They could have just gotten rid of all that shit.
The script feels very copy and paste. It feels like it's like 17 different drafts that have been like taken and clumped together, and what we have is a really enjoyable mess because of it. Because I do think that it's fair to call this a mess.
It's very messy. Very messy. Well, just on the to end the twin ship of it all. I think that what you're saying worked for you about the twins, why it didn't work for me, is because they didn't pit them against each other properly. Like, Carly ended up killing both Bo and Vincent, where it would have been maybe more interesting that, you know, the good twin went against the good twin and the bad twin went against the bad twin. Like, they each got their own twin to face off against, in a way, to really kind of, if they were really wanting to go with that thematic link of the good twin, bad twin thing. Because here it just seemed like, all right, it works for what it is, but it's just like, it would have worked better if they didn't throw all that word salad in there.
Well, it's just an awful lot. It's just an awful lot.
It is, but I when I say it works, I don't mean like I think they cinched it and they absolutely nailed it. What works about it for me, because I think it is, even the climax is sloppy, and not just because Max wax is melting all around them, but it's sloppy because even the fight scenes are kind of uneven. Like, Carly will be out of frame while Nick is fighting Bo or something, like downstairs, and for a long time I'll just be like, where is Carly? And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, she'll just be like, here I am, and she'll remember that she has, you know, like a weapon, and that she can, you know, do some damage. And so, I mean, yeah, I understand criticisms as far as maybe just like the progression of it. But what I appreciate about the fact that they didn't kind of just let Carly deal with one brother while Nick dealt with the other is that one of the strengths I feel like the movie is trying to posit that Carly and Nick have with their sibling relationship, quote unquote sibling relationship, is that they know exactly how much they mean to each other, so they will have each other's backs. It doesn't do a perfect job executing that, but I recognize that it's there. So that happened to me. Also, on top of that, just the sheer melodrama of, like, I mean, I started applauding and laughing out loud once that knife made its way through the upstairs wax door and divided the wax figure children, the babies that were attached at the head, and then I did it again.
Coincidence to do that.
It was. And then
Well,
it
I mean,
happened again when Vincent fell through the floor onto his brother in the formation in which they were entered this earth. They're going to enter this way, they're going to leave this way, like with one face at the back of the other one's head. Oh, I thought that was scintillating.
But this
yes.
goes to speak to that when Bo dies.
Yeah.
And Vincent realizes he's dead, and he gets down on his knees in front of him, and he's like, "No!" Like it is all my children times 57.
And I think that's probably why I can overlook a lot of things and just kind of like get on the ride and throw my arms up and scream along with him. But
one of the thing that I found particularly funny on this is the reaction, the varied reactions to finding the different bodies, because you have the sort of like, I guess like more so with Carly, and just like, you know, she sees the truck pull up and there's Paige and Blake, they're dead in there, and she's just like, and then she, you know, going through the cellar door, and she's like, Paige and Blake are dead, I saw their bodies, and they're like, we have to keep moving. And and then another part, they see Wade after he's already been dead, and she's like, Wade, no, and they're like, come on, we gotta go. But then it's Dalton. Right. When they find Dalton, and it's like this like fan favorite Dalton, who's just like he meant more to us than anyone else, and they full on take like a minute to just like grieve his
Nick of all
murder.
people.
Yeah,
Nick of all. Well, that's another thing. I love that, like, it kind of got paid forward in a way, like in that kind of Schadenfreude way, where when Dalton discovered Wade and decided to try and help in the House of Wax, and he started chipping away at his skin, peeling it off. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, man. Wait, and he just keeps picking at it. He just keeps.
Yep. But when his the side of his the tear was
tear coming down Jared Padalecki's face and everything like that. I love that. But then I love that, like, once Dalton has found the first thing they want to do after they're like sitting there, very, you know, taking it in, having an emotional beat for this beloved character. There's Nick, like, kind of like moved to his core in a way we haven't ever seen him on screen move to this level before, and I don't think since either. But he goes over, he's just kind of like, come on, buddy, we're going to get you out of here. Oh, and he breaks his head off of his body.
Doesn't it look like some kind of, like, the way that Dalton's done up, doesn't that look like something like straight out of Hellraiser 5 or 6 or 12 or something? It looks like he's been pinheaded, like, you know, and I think that's what I liked about his display was so completely, like, why is he like that? Everyone else is getting waxed and turned into like a figure to be put on display, and he's all, you know, it's very strange.
I love during, like, when he is attacked and, like, you know, pushed down the stairs, he kind of has this moment, and it's very similar to the Carly, like, please don't kill me, because he's fighting with this guy. He's like throwing wax plates at him. And they fall into this room, and then he turns to Vincent, and he's just like, wait, like, time out, almost, like, come on, we're in a horror movie, like, we don't do timeouts. But a question I wanted to ask both of you, because I was talking to a friend about this movie, because I was just saying, I'm gonna watch it tonight. And he remembered it, and he's just like, it never really, like, I was very confused about, like, what you were just talking about, how when they find Wade, and there's sort of like this wax over top of him, but underneath it's just like flesh and muscle tissue and all that. So, like, the process, like, how do you perceive the whole thing works? Like, I kind of took it as a way that, like, the heat of the wax kind of just, like, melted the skin. It, like, burnt the skin off and then just left, like, this waxy coating on top, which is what was then, like, smoothed and shaped around it. So when Dalton comes in and he starts, like, poking and peeling that's like the skin has essentially been replaced by wax, and what we see underneath is like there is no more skin. It's just been melted off. That's how I perceived it. I don't know if you had a different
Or the wax on the skin has become they've just
congealed.
been melded together, and
Fused. I always
so
thought they fused
yeah,
together. That's what I thought.
yeah,
It's so
and
the wax essentially is now your epidermal layer. That's
Yeah.
what I always perceived. So if you peel the wax away, you're taking the skin right away with it.
I see.
Because I mean,
when his face just slides, that's my favorite part of the whole damn thing. It's so it's disgusting, but it's operatic, and it's really kind of beautiful in a horrible way. Like,
Grand Guignol. Yeah,
it is. It's very
absolutely.
much that. It's very theatrical.
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of the gore in this movie, and even the non-gore. Like one of my favorite things about this movie, and I was so relieved to kind of be reminded about it because I think I hadn't really thought about it in a year or two, and it was just this bird's eye shot when it's after Carly is in the church hiding from Bo underneath the preacher or minister, whatever you want to call him, like underneath his robe, basically. And then all of a sudden a hand comes, she's like, ah, and she runs out. And it's this bird's eye shot. And it doesn't last very long, but it just kind of tracks her running and Bo following her from from like the God's eye
Yeah.
view, and then him closing in on her and then finally tackling her, and then we cut away to another shot. But that shot alone created tension with me. Like I was going, ah!
It could have gone
We
on.
mentioned
It
it
could have
'cause we
gone
said-
on much
It really
longer.
could've.
Yeah, I said like
could've.
it should have gone on longer. They should have went through like more of the town just to get the kind of an idea. Like they built this
would've been
entire
amazing.
town for the production. This was an
Yeah.
expensive movie, not as expensive as some movies that we've talked about. But did you notice? And I don't know if this was intentional. I don't know if I've ever read it, but the church is in the same style as the house on Haunted Hill.
Yeah,
It's the same.
It
kind
looks
of
like the
because it has that kind of
house.
cathedral look to it. Like
It's like a little cookie.
Easter egg.
It is. I
Yeah.
didn't think about that.
Oh
Well,
my
it has
God,
that
I've
very
just
like
been
Art
corrected.
Deco kind of like just like the
Yeah.
like clean
Yeah,
lines
it's-
and all that. Speaking of House on Haunted Hill, because we've had this conversation, like especially every time we do a Dark Castle. What is the Dark Castle ranking? Of
do
these
you want me to go first?
three. Yes, Edward, go first, because yours is always
Okay.
controversial to me.
Starting at the okay, so we're talking House of Wax, House on Haunted Hill, and which one?
13 Ghosts.
13 Ghosts. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about this while I was watching it actually. Bottom, sorry Zach, is House on Haunted Hill, and above that, I think I'd put 13 Ghosts, and then on top, I think is House of Wax, because I think I just watched it. I would watch it again right now, and not like I wouldn't watch 13 Ghosts again, but
Yeah.
13 Ghosts is kind of so ridiculous at a certain point. Like I feel like the best of 13 Ghosts is very scary, very creepy. I'm waiting for that series to be made about like the history of those ghosts, but
It's being talked
it
about.
kind of
might
goes off the
happen.
rails for me in a way. It kind of goes off the rails for me in a way that it doesn't ever really kind of like recover from by the end of the movie. Whereas House of Wax, it ends, I'm satisfied, I go home happy, and you know how I am about a third act. So anyway, that's me. How about you, Eric?
Eric.
Oh well, the thing I like about the Dark Castle films is the production designs are really kind of magical and exciting, and there's a lot of imagination that that goes into them. A lot of really innovative thought, and so that really is part of the huge part of the decision making for me. And then on top of that, like, what do I find the most entertaining and what annoys me least? And so it's House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, and House of Wax. It's yeah.
From best to worst.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And no, what you just said of just sort of like because the Dark Castle movies are very visual, they are very cinematic, and there's a production quality that goes into them that I feel like this is why I personally consider the Dark Castle remakes to be far superior to any of the other remakes. Like I think there's great remakes like the Dawn of the Dead remake, which we haven't talked about yet, but
Oh, that's such a damn good
But
movie.
Edward, like you always kind of talk about sort of like the visual style of a lot of the remakes, like the Friday the 13th, the Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, how it's just, everything is just gritty. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, everything's gritty and dark, and there's
Everyone looks dirty.
it's yeah, it's just it's kind
but
of
staged.
devoid. It's devoid of like a lot of life and color. It's just like that's sort of the thing. And Dark Castle is the opposite of that. Dark Castle is just infused with this just like vibrance and that carnival flair. And that's why like whenever people like discount any of these movies, and that's why it's like I'm gonna rank them. It's hard for me to do so because each one of them are so great in their own right. And I think all three of these are far superior to any of like Friday the 13th, 2009, which I love, Halloween,
Good
like
for you.
all that stuff. But I would say that the the ranking would go House on Haunted Hill because I think that like I love the story, I love the setup for it. Like it's just the most fun. I think that the performances are the best. You've got
It's a
Famke
wonderful
Janssen,
cast.
you've got Jeffrey Rush. Like everyone is just having so much fun. Like it's just like it's that is like the soap opera. It's just like a murderous soap opera. It feels so gothic. 13 Ghosts, I would say probably next. I just think visually it is the best out of all three of them. I think that like just the production design that went
Oh,
into
for sure.
the house and the designs for the ghosts are phenomenal. Like everything about that is
That lady in the
perfect.
bathtub. I will like that's a memory in my mind
Yeah.
forever. Is the ghost in the
The
bathtub
the
forever and
problem
ever.
with the movie is that the story kind of like as you said, Edward, it just like it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just like there's a lot of just like okay, and then like exposition. It's kind of weak in that regard. Which was like hopefully if they do a series, like they can kind of hone in on the strengths of the mythology of the ghost, and then House of Wax
Well,
would be a very close third because I think like I think everything that it's doing well, but it's not like exceeding or really going far below anything. It's very average to me, but it like in the best way possible. And even like the design of everything, like the wax figures and like the details of like the in the movie theater when he's shooting at them and they're exploding and there's cockroaches coming out of them, and then later on when they're melting and you can see the
yeah,
skeleton below that,
yeah.
and there's even a scene like in
Rock and roll.
the staircase that goes down into the basement, and there's like it's almost like a Freddy Krueger thing where you have all the heads coming out of the wall and like the candles, like it's just this brilliant like gothic style to everything that the movie looks incredible. So I mean like even though it's like it goes House on Haunted Hill, 13 goes House of Wax for me, it's just like these are all great movies visually. Like they're checking off all the boxes that should be checked off for movies on a production quality aspect of things.
Well, I think a really fun and helpful way to look at these films is to start. They all feel like they came from the same world, and they all feel like carnival rides. They all feel like really elaborate rides at a carnival. And if you look at them now, because if you go into like a haunted house, a walk through haunted house or a ride through haunted house, there's no logic to it, not really. Some of them have themes, but it's still sort of just like there's this random scary thing and this random crazy thing and this random stuff, and I think that Dark Castle really captures that feeling really well. Of I mean, logic be damned. Let's just throw all of this wild, crazy stuff at the audience and keep them entertained. And that is one thing I can say about all three of them, including House of Wax, is I was thoroughly entertained. And at the end of the day, isn't that why we watch movies and see theater and whatnot? Like we can take more away from it than that, depending on what we're watching. But if we're not being entertained, then what's the point? We could sit down and watch like the most serious, like thought-provoking and it makes you want to slit your wrists, and that's not a good time.
Or how many times are you going to return to something like that? Like, you can sit there and go, oh my goodness, this is so profound, and it makes me think about something like in a different way. Am I ever going to see it again? No, probably not, because it's too severe, it's too harsh, whereas this, it's harsh and it is severe in its way, but it's also got this playful aspect to it. And to speak to what you were got the ball rolling with, Zach, I believe, as far as in the way of like production design infused with spirit. That's what I get from any one of these Dark Castle films, is like a sense of kind of like what turned me on to horror in the first place, which is that sense of like being scared can be fun, or even watching other people be put in potentially scary situations can be fun. Like, you can experience some kind of voyeuristic thrill. And also, if any amusement park were to say today that they are going to like host a slew of mazes based on Dark Castle films, I'd be there in a heartbeat.
Oh my God.
I would go through the House on Haunted Hill maze, even though it's at the bottom of my ranking, because I want to see like, oh, how well did they capture the lighting? How well did they like capture the size of it all? Like, and how did they force perspectives? Which characters are going to be approaching me and how? Like that, yeah. As far as like actually interacting with an environment that's intriguing, I think Dark Castle absolutely knocks it out of the park. So.
Oh, you've just given me the most wonderful fantasy that I'm never going to be able to forget. Where is that? Where is that theme park?
I know, I want it.
I want it now. I want to go now. That would actually, these movies feel like they're laughing. They feel like they're laughing, and they feel like they're laughing with you. I think these movies know that they're not like the masterpieces of storytelling. They know that the scripts aren't like top notch or anything like that. And I don't think that they ever cared about that. I think that what they care about is having a wild and crazy good time, you know, and they do, and because of that, you do.
Yeah,
unless you don't.
They're very self-aware. There's the quality to it that it's just like, this is what you get. They know the audience that is going to see this movie, and I think that a lot of horror movies that are coming out nowadays don't know the audience, or just have this misconception about what audiences want to see or who wants to see something, or just really miscalculating how an audience is going to perceive a movie in the long term. Because like, we're talking about House of Wax nearly 20 years after it's come out, and we're talking about having just watched it and wanting to watch it again, because I could watch this movie many times. Like, I watched it 6 or 8 months ago, and I forgot all about it, and I had a different experience watching it last night than I did when I watched it earlier this year. So it's just like,
oh, we had so much fun. We had so much fun with it.
Yeah. When you said that thing about like the joke about Blake and Paige, like, I was just like laughing for 2 minutes straight.
I've never heard him laugh like that. It was, no, seriously, it was the most uproarious. Like, I mean, the people all over the building could hear him laughing. It was,
I'm sure.
It was a hysterical cackle. It was amazing.
Well, everything about that, the whole set piece with like Paris Hilton, I think. I really enjoy it. I think that it's like that whole factory that she goes in, or is that the sugar mill? It's not very clear, but like wherever they've got all the
cars.
There's cars. There's the old cell phones and stuff like that. Like I get a kick out of that. Like, it's not like, it was almost giving me a little bit of Prom Night, the Wendy chase scene, because she's hiding in the cars and things like that. But it felt, it felt like even that. I mean, this is 2005. Like, we talk about how chase scenes are very scarce in horror movies nowadays. Like, this is something, like, it's not comparable to like a Sarah Michelle Gellar, I Know What You Did Last Summer, or Courtney Cox in Scream 2, but it's still kind of like in the same spirit of it. Like, it's doing everything that, like, these movies have done from the 90s and the 80s, that it's giving me all that. And I love the fact that she's just, she's ready to fuck, and he goes out and she's just immediately within like seconds, she's just like, all right, I'm going to bed, and just like over it. Like, it's like there's something campy about that, where it's just like, I don't even know if it was intentional, of like, because we've talked about camp that way, of just like that's what they wanted to convey, of just like these are these characters. But I just think it's just like it. I don't know that they planned on having it perceived that way, but it just works. There's just something so funny about that. And then when she comes out, because he has an off-screen kill, and then he's discovered with the knife in his neck. And Eric, you were like trying to predict it, and you were saying like, oh, he's gonna pull the knife out of his neck now, but instead he like stomps it further.
No,
with
he
his boot.
stomps it in.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
But I will tell you that Blake needed to leave that tent so that we could see that body. Like, I mean,
Exactly.
That was another thing, though, that I was kind of
That's what
upset
that
about,
was.
though, is that Blake, because he was preceded by Carly the night before when they were all camping together, and Carly's like running around in her little white boxers and everything like that, showing off her legs and stuff. And I'm just kind of like, she's holding her body like she's cold, and I'm like, where are your pajama bottoms? Like, but I know what movie I'm watching, so I know why she's not wearing any. Then Blake comes out in his underwear to wake everybody up, but then pulls up his shorts, and I'm just like, well, why does he get to wear not shorts, his sweats? And I'm like, why does he get to wear sweats? He should be running around in his little white boxer briefs too. So I was glad that like later
it was heartbreaking.
But also in the sense of just like the overall way the audience can receive this movie, I think it's no mistake that the movie playing in the movie house in the town is Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, because everything that we're talking about in terms of like the straddling I guess levels of integrity, like it's so great that it is great, but is it, you know, like like we love it because of the things that it attempts that work, and we also love it for the things that it attempts. And I wouldn't say Baby Jane fails ever, but I think it does stumble sometimes. Maybe not every moment of that movie is getting across exactly what the intention of, you know, the filmmaker and everybody working on it that particular day might have wanted the audience to receive it, but we still receive it with love. And I think that's...
Baby Jane has draggy moments.
It absolutely
It's got some draggy moments.
But it also got like an Oscar nomination for Bette Davis for the biggest drag performance.
She never, ever got over Anne Bancroft winning. She never got over it. She blamed Joan Crawford for campaigning.
We're getting off topic
whatnot.
here. We'll do whatever happened to Baby Jane episode at some point.
I saw a Bette Davis interview like a couple of days ago, and I was like, this poor lady is so pissed off. She was like 95 or something when she just never ever got over it.
But the point is that everything that you were saying, you were talking about, Zach, in terms of just like you know, the time passing and us still discussing it. Like, look how quickly we can just drum up a conversation about Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, and it's been even longer. And I don't know if I'd necessarily put House of Wax in the same category as Baby Jane, you know, cinematically, as far as cinema history or anything like that. But I think as far as maybe the way it appeals to an audience, I might do that. Like the experience you might have moving through it. There are moments that are going to make your skin crawl. Yeah. There are moments that are going to make you laugh and applaud, and there are moments that you're going to just smile kind of warmly, like you're watching a comfort movie.
Well, I think that,
you know, even though all this dark shit is happening.
Is it Robert Aldridge who directed Baby Jane?
Yes.
Yeah. Because like it seemed like his kind of style was to make movies like this, movies that are just like fun horror picture sort of thing, and that's very much what Baby Jane is. Like, you know, in a bygone era, which is interesting. That if we're looking at like House of Wax and just sort of like the timeline of House of Waxes, because we've got the 1933 is the original. It's called The Mystery of the Wax Museum, which then was remade into House of Wax in 1953, or House of Wax in 3D in 1953.
Oh, it's so much fun in 3D. It's so much fun in 3D.
Yeah, with Vincent Price. And those are very similar. Like, that's the story being remade. And, of course, we have this coming in later. So it's really... It seems like with this movie, they're more so leaning into... Because they're kind of abandoned the story. They're doing like a Texas Chainsaw, almost like tourist trap thing here with the plot, but it's still leaning into the fun of the House of Wax. Like the title House of Wax in and of itself, just like and evokes like just this huge idea of fun, that you know that you're going to see this movie and having a good time, and everything about the marketing around this movie is just telling you this is going to be a good time. And it was, and I think even more so than they could have predicted that we are still talking about it. So in that regard, like just like comparing it to something like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, I think that just because it's House of Wax has been diluted through so many different iterations, that's why I don't think that it would be on the same echelon as something like Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. But if this was a movie, like, if House of Wax, I mean, which it was, made it around the same time or even like 10 years before Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, like that's something that's like going to be held up in high regard. So, this is a Whatever Happened to Baby Jane for millennials in the 2000s.
Well, there was a remake of Baby Jane in the early 90s with the
we've talked about it.
Amy
Steele's in it.
You know what? Now I'm talking about it.
The Red Grave.
I'm here now. But moving on. That's a side note. No, but to speak to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre situation, and I looked, and all I can find is the name of this character is Roadkill Driver.
Yeah.
Like, so, poor thing, but the setup with him is so clearly that character is derived from the Hitchhiker in the original Texas Chainsaw. There's so many really distinct similarities between the two. And I thought that was, at first I thought that I was going to be really pissed off about that for some stupid reason. And then I realized that I really liked that character a lot because of that. And the situation when he gets out of the car, they want out of the car, and he gets out of the car, he's walking around, he's got his knife and, out of his sheath, and he's coming, and he opens the door, and it's getting really kind of spooky. That's a spooky moment. That's a truly spooky moment, actually, come to think of it. And he doesn't have the knife anymore. And so there's this what's going on? And it's like, and he's just like, well, you try to help people, and then Jared Padalecki and Alicia Cuthbert are like walking like just like 4 feet ahead, and they see the town. He's like, well, I feel like an asshole. Right. It's like, you look like one too. Right. And you're about to act like one.
Honestly,
for
though,
another 15 minutes.
In terms of that character, like, I think that I appreciate little moments like that, but I think that he might have been part of like what slowed this movie down. They could have gotten to that town by themselves. They didn't need him. And the actor who plays him is his name is Damon Harriman, and he actually has played Charles Manson not one time but 2 times. He was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Quentin Tarantino, so just 2019, and the same year he was in Mindhunter, also playing Charles Manson, and he's fine. He does a great job in this. There's moments that I don't like. Like, the first thing that really pisses me off is the way that he's first introduced. Him getting out of the truck, like, this whole scene is kind of blocked in a way that is really poorly done, where he's not even acknowledging the group standing right there, and then when the shot is reversed and we see them there,
there is a community of people standing on a hill.
We got Paris Hilton in her
her in Technicolor
her aqua
colors and shit,
fleecy thing. Yeah, but it's just like, did you not notice them? They're literally standing right on the other side of that roadkill. Like, that pissed me off.
He's too busy loving the smell of that death.
Yeah, he's in his own world.
Oh, he's playing
his
around
roadkill.
Also, the fact that like Alicia Cuthbert was like all swimming around in it and like putting her hands in her hair, and it's just like, where you're spending the rest of the movie with that shit. Oh, anyway.
Well,
the thing that
up real
hold on,
good.
Eric,
she cleaned up.
Supposedly, the thing that annoys me the most though is like the ending, the epilogue, because none of that is necessary, and none of like the police coming into the town is necessary. Movies need to normalize this. Horror movies need to normalize this. And this is, just have the Suspiria ending. Literally they should have crawled out of...
Argento couldn't be that far away. Yeah.
Literally, crawl out of the House of Wax thing, the A in the House of Wax, turn around, the whole thing just melts behind them, and then have the credits roll and be like, you have been watching House of Wax. Goblin score blaring in the background. Did we really need that 3 extra minutes of the town and the cops and being like, yeah, this hasn't been on the radar, blah, 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 blah. And then being like, are you going to be okay? Yeah, are you going to be okay? Yeah. Stealing the camera, I bet you there's some great memories on here. What are they going to do? Go home and watch?
Of your friends dying.
Yeah, he filmed Paris Hilton getting thing javelin through her skull. Like, that's what they're gonna watch.
Getting final chaptered with, I always think of Jason's kill in final chapter as he slides down onto the machete. That's Paris Hilton on that pipe.
That whole thing, and then like the Sinclairs didn't have 2 sons; they had 3, and then come on.
Yeah. And I said to you, Zach, I said, I asked you, like, were they setting up a sequel? What were they doing with that? Yeah, it felt like that to me. And because why do we need, and certainly I don't know if I needed, if that, whether or not they were, I certainly didn't need a sequel that focused on this character, because I mean, he was just a jolly little silly crazy man, like, but I mean, you could chop out a half hour of this movie. You could cut a half hour of this movie. You would not miss it. You would not miss it. You could cut out half the cast too.
He was also a horny, creepy guy though too. Like, one of the things that I actually liked his creepiness for was when, first off, Chad Michael Murray pulled his tank off. Like, that was nice. It confused the situation, because I don't think I'd ever pull off my tank top around my sister like that. Just like, wait. And just, here, wear this.
I think they knew who they were making that movie for. They were making it for us.
It's just a little too sexually charged for a brother and sister exchange. But anyway, I feel on one hand I understand like the twinship that they're trying to go for, but if they would have been exes, it would have made a lot more sense in like maybe the first third of the movie. But anyway,
to be honest with you, I actually thought that they were.
Right.
The
first time I saw it,
it slipped my mind that they were related. I thought that they were. I know. I really spent like a huge portion of that movie last night thinking that they were. That they were exes, and then when I found out that they were not, that they were siblings, that's when it all kind of got a little bit icky.
Dear. Yeah. But what I appreciate about it is, like, once he hands her the tank and she's like taking off her yucky shirt and everything like that, all 4 of the guys like in the group like seem to kind of like band in front of her, because they know that little pervy roadkill driver's like going to be like looking at her and stuff. And I thought, oh, well, that's really cool. Like, they're not just kind of like, I feel like 20, if this movie had been 20 or 30 years made 20 or 30 years earlier, none of the guys would have done that. Maybe one of them would have been like, hey, what are you looking at? But nobody would have thought about her and her comfort level, and the fact that like she's just kind of like, it's okay, to John Abraham's character, and just kind of like, and then he puts the jacket down or whatever. I was like, oh, cool. So they're actually kind of decent people. Not really ever again in the movie, but they are in that particular instance. And then I didn't understand. It was another like one of those little details where I'm just kind of like, yeah, not a lot of thought went into the situations of this movie being plausible. Because why would Wade, after experiencing that, ever allow her to ride bitch and have to kind of like bump thighs with Roadkill Driver, when he could easily have like taken that seat and just kind of like created an area, like a cushion, like an area of protection.
Well, you know what?
Yeah,
I think that
true.
I think that Wade has kind of, proved himself to be kind of a piece of shit, a shitty boyfriend. But I think that's probably a good segue to move along, because I think it's time for the cherry picker.
It's not like we killed people. On purpose.
First things first, we got to pick a cherry on top. I'm interested in hearing thoughts, but I'm gonna throw it out there first. I'm gonna say Nick. Is it Jones? Whatever Chad Michael Murray's character is. I'm gonna say
it's Jones.
Yeah, Nick Jones. I just think that anytime that he was on the screen, it just always became more interesting. It's really sexy, and I think that he actually delivered a pretty good performance. I think, even the moment that you were talking about where he was like kind of like diving into like the depths of his soul and just like emoting that like, oh, my friend, or whatever. Even like the moment where they see the old lady and he's like, are you telling me that's a real person underneath there? Like he doesn't like, he delivers, he was really getting into it.
Yeah. I agree.
The 100%. Old lady, I love the old lady. I love the automated old lady. She was amazing. That was amazing. It tricked me. It tricked me all the way up until like right before we discovered what it was. I bought that. I was like, there's one person alive. Go find. I mean, maybe that was me having a blonde moment, but still, I loved the No,
Right.
her opening and closing the curtain and all of that was really really cute and fun. And
Yeah. Well, she gets an honorable mention for cherry on top.
Yeah.
But I'm with you 100% as far as I think Chad Michael Murray made a character who could have so easily been so disdainful and so hard to watch. Utterly watchable, and not just because he's sexy. I mean, to this day he is. Check out his Instagram, folks. Oof.
Well, he's doing a lot of Hallmark movies now. We had to look up like whatever happened to him. He's making his rounds.
it's steady work.
Yeah.
Those Hallmark movies are steady work. I've got a couple of friends who act in them
Yeah.
pretty frequently, and they are woo. It's a good time.
It's a good time. So good for him. But yeah, no, and also just the fact that like even like when his character is, because I remember thinking like, you're telling me that's a real person? I'm like, yeah, that's kind of the whole idea of the movie. I wouldn't put that moment there myself, but the fact that he played it with such gravitas and such specificity, I could admire that. Like I never watched, what was it? Was it The Hills that he was on?
It was
Oh,
One Tree Hill.
One Tree Hill.
That thing. I never saw it, obviously.
It was
And
very languid.
Yeah, and I had never been exposed to anything that he had done in any other capacity. And then when I saw this movie, I was like, oh, he's an actor. You know, he's not just like, you know, a pretty guy. Like, I can see intention. I can see personal choices being made. I can see spontaneity. I can see how not every take would be exactly the same. So I have nothing but respect for him. And he makes Nick really palatable, and the character on paper shouldn't be. So
Well, and the thing about Chad Michael Murray is that he his beauty might have actually been a monkey wrench for him because it is kind of a because in One Tree Hill he just as I recall, and I might be he might have done more, but what I did see of it, there was just a lot of brooding. There was just a lot of brooding for ever many seasons that went on. But I think that he's captivating. I think that he's rather transfixing, and I think that I would have loved to have seen more happen with him. And I think that there is the stigma of, well, he's just so hot, he probably can't do anything.
Can I also tell you, like, I feel like he is to this movie, even though they're in, like, swapped spots by the end of the movie, but I feel like he is to this movie, for me, what Ryan Phillippe is to I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Jared Padalecki is to this movie what Freddie Prinze Jr. is
Oh,
to
that's
I Know
a
What You
great
Did Last
correlation.
Summer.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. No, I would
pretty
agree.
good.
I would agree. Like that's just the same thing. Just like 8 years later.
Repackaged.
Yeah.
Repackaged,
Yeah,
repurposed,
but-
yeah.
All right. Well, last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. I nominated Lorenzo the Orderly. You nominated Dr. Elizabeth Sims. Across Patreon, Instagram, YouTube, the vote was 397 for Lorenzo versus 549 for Dr. Sims.
You're on a winning streak, Edward.
All right.
Yeah, you have been. Getting a little annoying there.
That's the best part.
Dylan
Oh yeah. He whines about it
Pendrak
behind your
says, "Oh my God, how is Dr. Sims higher? She was doing what she thought was the best for the kids. Obviously, she was wrong,
God.
but at least she wasn't harassing someone who's struggling with addiction into relapsing. Also, the Orderly just oozed gross creep vibes. I like to imagine his character eventually got his comeuppance in the Blob remake." Dylan Jameson.
Too.
Honestly, I don't remember anything about Lorenzo and feel like I should have rewatched the film before voting, but some comments refreshed my memory about him. But my vote went to Sims, as she reminded me of a teacher I had in high school that abused the power she held over students with how she abuses her position by not even listening like a psychiatric professional should in cases like that to try and help the teens, but just very long sentence, but just shutting them down completely and refusing to listen. So while both can die, Sims can die more bloody. And neither of them died, unfortunately.
No, they both should have died. Both of them should have died, actually. Yeah.
No, they're probably still alive now.
I hate both of them from a movie viewer perspective, but I voted for Lorenzo. Sims tried to do what she thought was the right thing, while Lorenzo tried to take advantage of Taryn and was just a scumbag. Actually, I just remembered Sims was trash because she didn't even listen to the kids about anything or their group psychosis.
No.
As is, if that wasn't a strange occurrence, death to all of them in my Wendy Williams voice. By the way, this is my favorite movie, and I've met Jennifer Rubin and showed her my Terran Boy cosplay. Very cool. Very cool.
That's nice.
Elliot from Orlando. Dang, this is hard. I vote Sims. Lorenzo is a very close second, but something about Sims's unwillingness to listen to her charges just irked me. This seems to be a common motif in 80s horror. Therapists who either ignore or exploit the kids in their care. Think Bad News Cruise in Friday Part 7.
Oh,
Bad News Crew. Well, yeah.
The Tar Man. I at least understand Sims. She's ultimately an antagonist, but it's because what she's being asked to humor is something supernatural, so she chalks it up to vague mass hysteria, which most rational people would. The things she ignores and rationalizes aren't hard to grasp when looking at her character more objectively. Lorenzo is just a straight-up predator. He's in the same vein as Freddy himself, where he's a fully self-aware, cognizant abuser who just wants to indulge in his carnal desires and little ease. How many teens and young adults has he harmed before the events of the film? How many after? He's scum and deserves to burn.
Yeah.
Ooh, this person had a really good time writing that.
There's some spiciness in some of these comments.
Yeah.
Spidey fan, 1990. Sims was doing what she thought was best for the kids. Lorenzo was a walking STD who would take advantage of anybody he could. I'm talking about clean pharmaceutical high a night at Club Meth. I guess that was his quote.
Oh my god.
Wow.
There's definitely
spicy.
a vocal minority here because
Yeah,
this is
we're back to that.
Yeah.
That's true to form.
Amethyst Frost. The orderly does suck, and Taryn should have knifed him in her last scene before facing off with Freddy. But Sims is the true villain of the story. She gets all of those kids and Nancy killed because she won't listen. She's smug and dismissive to Neil when he gets fired, and she's not even funny with being awful, unlike Kristen's mother shrieking "Andale" at people. Do I know what that means? I don't know. How unfortunate.
On delay.
On delay.
Oh.
On delay.
On delay. On delay. She does it in the next
How do you
movie,
spell
too.
on
She gets
delay?
decapitated. It's like every time I try to bring a man home, you.
Yeah, your shrink says you're just trying to get a little attention. That's what she's.
Apparently, I don't know how to.
It's on-
I don't know how to pronounce
Andale,
on delay.
Spanish.
Andale.
Yeah, sorry,
Andale.
And Dale.
How
I was a
unfortunate that
little-
Priscilla Pointer goes from being Sue Snell's mother to being the Margaret White of this movie, a dictator who blames the kids' problems on sins like sex, drugs, and rock and roll. In general, Weston Hills truly is a hellhole for staffing Lorenzo. Sims, the guy in charge who fires Neil and Nancy, when he asks them how he should explain Joey being in a coma to his parents, it's like, what did you tell Philip and Jennifer's parents after they died? The people who lock Amanda in with the inmates, even that nurse who sees Joey throwing a fit and asks Joey, what's wrong? Like she's brand new and doesn't know he's mute. Kill Sims, but really kill all of them. Death to them all, as in the Wendy Williams voice. I like to think that's what Freddy is busy doing over the next 2 years and why Weston Hills is abandoned in Nightmare 5. Silent Saturn. I hope the votes for Dr. Sims are inadvertently for Lorenzo, as she allowed him to work in a place where he can prey on the vulnerable. Otherwise, I don't get how she's worse than that pile of inhuman trash. Dr. Sims doesn't know what the audience knows, so her reaction, all things considered, isn't that odd, and she believes she's helping expletive orderly get my vote.
You know what they say about the road to hell? What it's paved with.
Alan Price, Lorenzo, definitely. I would say it should be her, but she really didn't know what was going on, rather than him who's trying to get with patience. He always gave me the creeps, and I've watched this movie since I was 11. Meme City. Dr. Sims was ignorant of the situation, but she wanted to help. Lorenzo was on some Freddy level of creep. LOL. Michael CZ says people know who Lorenzo was in the movie, right? Guy needed to be strung up by Freddy for sure. Grant Dempsey. Lorenzo is awful, and I'm glad he seems poised to win this. Not quite. But I myself am going to keep up with my 2023 streak of voting for therapists and throw in a vote for Dr. Sims. Not because she doesn't buy into all the Freddy stuff, because yeah, of course she would be skeptical, fair enough, but for being a truly terrible doctor anyway, literally saying, I'm not listening to this while running a therapy circle, irritably calling out her patients, vulnerable teens, over their weaknesses, declaring guilt over overt sexuality, the cause of all their problems, using solitary confinement as a routine punishment, ordering universal evening sedation, and, as Silent Saturn mentioned, employing a man like Lorenzo to begin with. She should not be responsible for helping kids. My chunky Jordy.
Is the year of death to therapists.
Lorenzo was a dick, but Elizabeth is bleep. She is meant to be a doctor who helps people. She certainly wouldn't be my doctor for long and should have been a victim. She's like most mental health doctors and doesn't listen to the patient's needs. Green hair, Lorenzo, 100%. That guy was trash. At least Sims had good intentions, however misguided she was. Blue Box 87, more like Lorenzo's oil because he's so greasy and gross. Dr. Sims is giving Nurse Ratched vibes, but at the same time, from what I remember, she acted the way most medical professionals would act and didn't actually want to cause the kids any harm. So Lorenzo gets my vote. Hamish says Lorenzo because who's Lorenzo again? Danny Quiro says, damn, it's 50-50. Well, it was. G Boney says, if a skeevy drug pusher taking advantage of a minor who's trying to get help and stay clean edges out a physician who is doing what she thinks is best and what she's trained to do, there is no fucking justice on this planet. James Morant, I say both, and Michael Begley, even though Dr. Sims is in the film more and is so patronizing, I mean, forcing the kids to get good REM sleep, even though they're even though you've tried that and they keep dying, I have to vote Lorenzo. He's barely in the film, but when he is, he's attempting to take advantage of a young woman in a vulnerable position and is an utter creep. Reminds me of the kind of guys at bars who think they could go home with any woman they want. What a loser.
Loser.
All right.
Now I've got to interject something here. I had never realized that Sue Snell's mother was Dr. Sims. That is a whole. My mind is blown. I actually had no idea, but now I'm like, oh, well, of course it is. Just look at her.
Yeah.
How did I ever not see that?
She's young. She'll probably forget.
She'll probably forget all about it. All right,
Eric. Eric, you are our special guest, so you actually get first dibs.
Go for it.
Oh well, it's got to be Wade.
Wade, yeah.
It's got to be Wade.
Yeah.
I mean, Wade is just he spends the entire movie asking to die. Please kill me, and he seems pretty happy about it. So just give him what he wants and just kill him.
Okay.
True. Yeah. Right, Edward. What do you think?
I don't know how popular this is going to be because it's kind of like in line with who I chose last year. I like to start from the top. The fish rots from the head. The sheriff. I'm picking the sheriff just because he's the one at the end of the movie who's just like, we probably wouldn't have even known this was all going on if there hadn't been that smoke. And it's like, so these people would have gone on dying and preserving these bodies within wax and living their sick little small town life. That is inexcusable. He deserves to die. I'm sorry.
Oh my.
Kill him.
Yeah.
Don't fuck him. Just kill him.
I'm
in the derogatory way. Go on.
I'm gonna be extremely basic, and I'm gonna go for Beau Sinclair. For I mean, not that I don't enjoy him, but just for the simple fact that when she's finally pummeling his face with that bat, it feels good. It just like finally when they shot him when he was coming out of the theater with the crossbow, all I could think was like, kill him more. Yeah. So
absolutely.
All you could say was kill him more.
Yeah, he's not dead enough. And clearly
he bounces back so quickly.
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. So I'm nominating him. He needs to die the most. So anyway, those are your options.
Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah. Vincent does very much resemble Tommy Wiseau in this movie. It's been said before. But those are your nominations. You can vote for Wade. You can vote for Sheriff. Did he have a name?
No.
Make me do all the work looking it up.
Sheriff, fuck you.
Sheriff, fuck you.
Sheriff, fuck you.
Or Bo. You can vote on Patreon if you are supporting, as I mentioned earlier. You do get an extra vote there. You can vote on Instagram. Go follow us there. It is at the Cherry Picker Pod. You can also vote on YouTube in the community section. If you're new to the podcast and you are listening to us, go head over to YouTube, subscribe. You can watch us. And if you are watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. Where can they find everyone on social media? Eric, how about you first?
You can find me on Instagram at ericchampney. It's at Eric Champney, ErikChampney. And it's a good time. Come see me.
Yeah. Edward, how about you?
Come up and see me sometime.
Yeah, come on, girl.
Edward is truth, one word, traditional spelling across Instagram, Letterboxd, YouTube, and that thing that I'm never on, the clock sound.
There you go, yeah.
TikTok.
And you can follow me on my main channel, Zach Cherry, ZackChery. Also Twitter at ZachCherry8, Instagram at RetroBitchface. What was the other one you mentioned? Letterboxd, Zach Cherry,
Yeah.
same spelling, all that fun stuff. Eric, thank you so much for joining us for this very unconventional episode.
It's been a joy, fellas. I've really loved this. We used to do some episodes on the old podcast back on Patreon, and so it just feels like old home week. And, we had a really good time. Yeah, we had a really good time back then, and so it's been wonderful reconnecting through the pod in this way. So thank you for having me. I really have loved this.
Yeah, thank you for coming aboard.
Yay!
Edward, what's happening
Yay.
next week?
Is it the one with the bubble gum and the kick-ass?
That's the one.
It's They Live. They Live.
Yeah,
by
we're doing some John Carpenter
etc.
finally. Yeah. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening.